People talk all the time about wanting to change their lives, wanting success, wanting peace, wanting direction. But the strange thing is, when you watch how they actually use their time, it becomes obvious that they don't fully understand what they're dealing with. Time isn't just minutes on a clock or days on a calendar. It's not some neutral container in which life happens. Time is life. It is the raw material out of which every achievement, every failure, every relationship, every moment of growth or decay is carved. And the uncomfortable truth, the one people shy away from because it feels harsh, is that you are trading pieces of your existence for whatever you choose to focus on. Every decision you make is a negotiation with your own future. Think about that for a moment. When you waste an hour, it's not just an hour that disappears. It's an hour of potential, an hour where you could have improved your skills, deepened your understanding, strengthened your character, or moved one step closer to a meaningful goal. People often say that life is short, but that's not entirely accurate. Life is long enough if you don't squander it. But the catch is that most people do. They treat time like an infinite resource, something that will always be there tomorrow, or the day after that, or whenever they finally decide to get serious. It's almost tragic, really. Because deep down, everyone knows that life is passing. You can feel it. You sense it when you realize the year went by faster than the one before. You sense it when you remember the ambitions you had 5 years ago, ambitions that are still sitting in the same unresolved state. You sense it when you see someone younger taking bold steps you still haven't taken. And that sense isn't meant to depress you. It's meant to awaken you. It's a biological alarm clock reminding you that drifting through life is not a strategy. It's surrender. People underestimate how powerful the proper use of time can be. Small, consistent investments compound in ways that are almost impossible to imagine. If you dedicate even one focused hour a day to learning a skill, improving your health, building a project, strengthening a relationship, anything of genuine value, you will not be the same person a year from now. You will have transformed the trajectory of your own life. Because deliberate effort aimed at a meaningful target transforms people. Not all at once, not dramatically, but inevitably. Time rewards those who respect it, but the opposite is also true. If you consistently waste your hours on distractions, on meaningless arguments, on comfort, on avoidance, you don't just remain the same, you slowly deteriorate. You become someone who could have been more but wasn't. And that's the real tragedy of wasted time. It doesn't leave you untouched. It shapes you. It carves a version of you that is weaker, more anxious, more resentful, more dependent on easy pleasures. People don't usually notice this happening because the decline is subtle, but it's real. And if you've ever looked at yourself in the mirror and felt disappointed, that feeling is often the accumulated result of time spent poorly. And this is why the concept of responsibility matters so much. It's not about being strict with yourself for the sake of discipline alone. It's about understanding that you can either be the sculptor of your own destiny or the byproduct of your own neglect. When you claim responsibility for your time, you're claiming responsibility for your life. You're saying, I will decide who I become. I will decide what I create. I will decide how far I go. That's a powerful realization. It's the foundation of personal transformation. But responsibility brings another truth with it. You will have to sacrifice. You cannot become who you could be while clinging to habits that keep you who you are. And a lot of people never fully confront this trade-off. They want comfort and progress simultaneously. They want the reward without the discipline. But time doesn't negotiate with comfort. It demands a price. And the price of a meaningful life is the willingness to prioritize what matters over what is easy. The good news is that the moment you start valuing your time, things change quickly. You begin to notice what drains you. You start cutting away useless commitments. You stop giving attention to people or platforms that feed your weaknesses instead of your strengths. You begin to act with intention instead of impulse. And your future self begins to thank you, quietly at first, then loudly as results accumulate. Because when you respect time, time respects you. It becomes an ally. It starts working in your favor instead of against you. And there's something deeply empowering about that, knowing that you're no longer drifting, but steering. No longer reacting, but choosing. No longer wasting, but building. In the end, the question you should ask yourself isn't, do I have enough time? The real question is, am I using the time I already have in a way that honors the life I want to live? Because the clock is ticking whether you pay attention or not. People often imagine that the future will arrive as a kind of accidental reward, that one day they will wake up more successful, more confident, more stable, simply because they wished for it long enough. But the uncomfortable truth is that the future is built moment by moment through the choices you make about how you use your time. And the reality is you cannot buy more. You cannot borrow it. You cannot steal it. You cannot negotiate for a little extra. Time is the one resource that evaporates whether you act or not. That's what makes it the most valuable currency you possess, not just because it is limited, but because it is constantly slipping away. You have to understand something fundamental. Every action you take has a price in time, and unlike money, which you can lose and regain, time only moves in one direction. It's a one-way transaction. Once you spend it, it's gone permanently. This is why wasted time is so destructive. It's not simply lost. It's replaced by nothing. It leaves a vacuum. And a vacuum in a human life becomes despair. People feel aimless, not because they lack goals, but because they've misused so much time that they no longer trust their ability to redirect their life. They try to outrun the anxiety by distracting themselves even more. It's a vicious cycle built on avoidance. And avoidance is one of the biggest thieves of time. We avoid tasks that demand effort. We avoid conversations that require honesty. We avoid challenges that might expose our weaknesses. Each act of avoidance feels small, almost harmless, but collectively they add up to a life of unrealized potential. Avoidance is seductive because it gives immediate relief. But that relief comes at a long-term cost, one far higher than most people are willing to admit. When you avoid responsibility today, you are borrowing happiness from your future self, and the interest rate is brutal. You have to grasp the psychological cost of time wasted. You are not only losing hours, you are shaping your identity around inactivity. Every time you procrastinate, you reinforce the habit of not acting. And that habit becomes a personality. Someone who just can't get things done. Someone who never has enough motivation. Someone who always struggles. But none of that is inherently true. It is built through repeated choices. You become what you repeatedly do. And when what you repeatedly do is waste time, the consequences accumulate silently until they become unbearable. The frightening part is that people usually don't realize how much time they've wasted until a turning point forces them to look. Sometimes it's losing a job, sometimes it's the end of a relationship, sometimes it's a health scare, sometimes it's simply hitting a certain age and realizing the years have passed faster than expected. And in those moments, people often say, "I wish I could go back." But they can't, no one can. And that is precisely why time is so powerful. It demands respect. It punishes carelessness. It rewards discipline in ways that feel almost miraculous. Yet, even though time is ruthless, it is also incredibly generous to those who honor it. When you begin using it wisely, even just a little, you'll notice something shift. You start to build momentum. You start to recognize that your actions matter. You begin to see the connection between consistent effort and meaningful progress. You stretch the boundaries of what you thought you were capable of. You stop being intimidated by the enormity of your goals and start breaking them down into manageable segments. And suddenly, a task that felt impossible becomes something achievable. Human beings are wired for progress. We are built to aim at something. We deteriorate when we drift. We become resentful when our days have no structure. So when you commit to using your time wisely, you are aligning yourself with something deeply biological. Something ancient, the instinct toward meaningful striving. People think meaning is abstract, but it's incredibly practical. When you use your time for something productive, something that demands skill, attention, sacrifice, you experience meaning directly. It energizes you. It clarifies your direction. It gives you a reason to push through discomfort. And that's where the transformation happens. Because when you start valuing your time, you start valuing yourself. You stop tolerating the habits that weaken you. You stop engaging with people who drain you. You stop surrendering your potential to temporary pleasures. You begin to hold yourself to a higher standard. Not a perfect standard, just a higher one. And over time, a higher standard compounds into competence, confidence, and purpose. People believe they lack motivation, but in truth, they lack structure. They lack priorities. They lack the courage to say, "My time matters." When you finally say that, when you really mean it, you force yourself to act. You become someone who uses each hour as if it contributes to something larger. And that kind of person is unstoppable because they're not just living in the present, they're building the future intentionally. There's an uncomfortable reality we all confront eventually. Life doesn't pause simply because we haven't figured ourselves out yet. It keeps moving forward, indifferent to our hesitations, unmoved by our uncertainties, and completely unaffected by the fact that we often operate far below our potential. And this is where the idea of discipline becomes unavoidable. People talk about dreams and ambitions as if wanting something intensely is enough to make it real. But desire without discipline is just fantasy. It's the seductive illusion that you'll get somewhere meaningful without paying the cost in effort, consistency, and sacrifice. And that's the critical point. Every meaningful goal requires a price, and time is the currency with which discipline operates. Discipline is not about forcing yourself into rigid routines for the sake of appearing productive. It's about voluntarily taking on the responsibility of shaping your life instead of allowing circumstances to shape it for you. The world is harsh to people who drift. Entropy takes over quickly. Disorder grows in any area you neglect: your habits, your health, your finances, your relationships, your sense of direction. And the deeper the disorder grows, the more painful it becomes to confront. Ironically, that pain pushes people further into avoidance, further into distraction, further into wasting time. So they end up trapped by their own unwillingness to act. Discipline is the antidote to that trap. It is the structure you impose on yourself to keep chaos at bay. It is the decision to use your time intentionally, even when you don't feel like it, because you understand the cost of not doing so. And that's something people often misunderstand. Discipline isn't a personality trait some people are born with. It's a muscle. It grows through use, and it withers when ignored. If you practice discipline in small things, waking up on time, setting priorities, following through on commitments, your ability to handle larger responsibilities expands naturally. You build trust with yourself. You start recognizing that your actions have weight, and you gain confidence from that recognition. Discipline becomes especially powerful when you pair it with a target. Without a goal, discipline turns into self-punishment. With a goal, it becomes the most empowering tool you possess. And here's something people rarely admit: having a clear goal is frightening. It eliminates excuses. It forces you to confront whether your actions align with the person you claim you want to become. A vague dream is safer because it protects you from the responsibility of actually pursuing it. But the cost of safety is stagnation, and the cost of stagnation is regret. When you establish a meaningful goal and discipline yourself to pursue it daily, even in small, incremental ways, you begin generating momentum. And momentum is one of the most underestimated forces in human psychology. Once you have it, everything becomes easier to sustain. But until you have it, everything feels impossible. People quit not because they lack ability, but because they try to generate momentum without consistency. They expect results after 3 days of effort. And when nothing dramatic happens, they give up and retreat to the comfort of wasted time. They fail to understand that momentum is invisible at first. It builds beneath the surface, quietly reinforcing your identity long before it becomes visible in your external results. Discipline also shapes the way you perceive yourself. When you consistently act in alignment with your values, you stop being ashamed of your potential. You stop feeling like an imposter in your own life. You move from wishing to becoming. And that change in identity is profound. Instead of seeing challenges as threats, you begin to interpret them as opportunities to grow stronger. Instead of avoiding responsibility, you start seeking it out because you understand that responsibility is the foundation of meaning. The truth is, meaning doesn't come from comfort. It emerges from the struggle to organize your life around something worth striving for. Discipline is the mechanism that allows you to endure that struggle without breaking. It gives your time a direction. It protects you from being at the mercy of your impulses. It ensures that each day contributes, however slightly, to the life you're building. And when you string together enough disciplined days, you create a pattern. That pattern becomes a path. And that path becomes a future you can actually believe in. There's a reason people admire discipline, even when they struggle to practice it. Deep down, we all sense that the disciplined person is someone who has willingly confronted the chaos inside themselves and chosen order over impulsiveness, responsibility over comfort, progress over stagnation. They have chosen to step into their own potential instead of hiding from it. That kind of person is not just productive, they are formidable. They cannot be easily swayed, manipulated, or broken. They have roots.